So I just got back from a run, and I was thinking of my friend Kevin and his son and daughter, and I'm going to go climbing with them in a few days. And thinking about school. Well, they're in the summer now, so they can forget all that. But uh, in school, history is presented in a way that kills the fun of it. It's just not very interesting. It's a bunch of dates, a bunch of odd things that happen, and it's presented in a way that flattens it all out. It makes the human story seem boring and uninteresting. Consequently, they forget everything as soon as they can. Then they go live their lives. And then, like, Jay Leno interviews them on the beach, and they don't know anything. And that is an indictment of the way we teach kids. It would have been better to do nothing. It definitely would have been better to, like, have them plant a garden, you know, or I don't know, balance a checkbook, or help their dad with a carburetor. Um, uh, because not only did they forget everything, but they wanted to forget everything because the way we taught them sent them a message that none of it matters, um, which is extremely opposite the truth. Um, and what a shame, what a huge shame it is. I actually liked history, but the only reason I liked it was that before I had any history in school, I had discovered reading, and I had picked up the thread of the human story through reading. And so then, if I could read it, then my imagination could get me past that dreadful message, um, that we live in a bunch of chaotic events, and that's not true at all. So suppose you think it is true. Suppose you think it's just a bunch of stuff that happened and it doesn't matter at all. Well, let's see if that. Let's take that big idea and let's bring it down to just your life. Okay, so if everything in the large doesn't matter, then let's come down to your life. Do the events of your life matter? Is there any meaning to them? You know, if you order a new helmet, uh, which has like Bluetooth in it or something, I don't know. Uh, was that random, or did you want it for some reason? Why did you want it? Why did you think that was good? You're gonna have reasons. Maybe you won't even like your reasons once you examine them, but at least some of your reasons for things will be good. Some of them will be deeply connected to your life. So I submit that if you think about it, um, the events of your life matter. And sometimes you made choices and they cost you something, but they got you something too. Are you going to say those don't matter? If they're just random, then you should just get up every day and roll the dice and do whatever the dice say. Or there will be a horoscope, do whatever it says, or something like that. No, you don't do that. Those of you who do read a horoscope, you end up just using it as like confirmation or disconfirmation of something you're thinking about, right? You're using it as a kind of a weather vane to see if, you know, the weather is good right now or not, to do what you want to do. But if you don't do it this day, you'll come back to it in a week. You'll try again. You'll check the horoscope, or you'll ask your friend, or whatever. So your individual life matters. How about the people you love? Do they have the right to have things that matter and choices that matter in their life? Is their story one that matters? Now, if you say no, then you're guilty of solipsism, meaning you think you're the only one alive and everything else around you is just a function of you. It's kind of they're NPCs, right? Most people don't actually think that. Uh, so your life matters. The people you know, their lives matter. Now, collectively, that's a small community already, right? That's like 6 people. It might be 16 people, and each of them are connected to a bunch of others too. Eventually, you get to 100 or 150 people, and if you span those people, if you take their lives from childhood to old age, there's going to be a bunch of choices that hurt them, a bunch of choices that help them, but they own them. They own them all, you know, and it matters. So by extension, your civilization is just the same thing. It's just humans making decisions that matter. Okay? It's true that if those decisions are made far away from you with people you don't know, maybe it's harder for you to grasp or to get excited about. But on the other hand, usually the more distant the decisions and life choices are, the more likely it is that they're going to be crazy if you heard about them. Yeah, it's going to be, it's going to be somebody blew up a factory or something, or somebody, nailed a proclamation to a door. Um, it'll be a little bit crazy. And as long as you know that, okay, these were real people just like you who did these things, then you, your imagination catches fire. You think like, my God, I can't imagine doing that. Um, or I can't imagine like, um, a woman like my mom's age doing something like that woman did in the history I read about. How can that be? So then you get interested, and then it starts to matter. So that's how history is interesting. Now, I realize you could go too far in that direction. You could end up just saying, well, the only way I can find history interesting is only through a personal story. Well, then you end up with something like, I don't know, Lifetime TV movies, where, I mean, the fact that Napoleon went to Moscow, it's really, it's kind of a, it's kind of a side effect of a washerwoman in Poland. Like it's really her story, and okay, that stuff happened in the background. Well, I think that would be a mistake. I think you do need to get this sense of these vast movements of people, um, that it's big and it's beyond any one person. And so then you can start to wonder, how would so many people move in one direction, even though it hurts them or it's risky? And that's things like war, or huge movements of people for whatever reason. What would drive them? Okay, that dives back into the personal a little bit. Like young men joining up with Napoleon's army and marching grandly to the east. Um, they didn't know it would be a terrible disaster, and they'd come back with frostbite and missing limbs, or just dead in a ditch somewhere along the way. Um, when they went, they had reasons. Maybe it was kind of a career reason. Maybe it was a chance to get ahead. Maybe, suppose you're like 18 years old, and the neighboring farm, your friend, his dad is a rich farmer and just married the prettiest girl in the village. And you're starting to feel a little bit squeezed out. Like, what's your life going to be? You're going to be a hired hand somewhere? And you've seen these hired hands? And they're all drunk a lot? You might feel dissatisfaction at that life. So if you have the chance to join something big and risky, maybe get on a boat and go far away, you might do it. Yeah, so that's got to be a big part of history. Young men trying to improve their position and jumping on to a risky endeavor. Maybe they're bored. Maybe they heard their grandfathers and their dads talk about wars that they were in. This happens. This happens. I've heard this described as a reason for the enthusiasm with which Germany embraced the First World War. They had grown up with all kinds of stories from the 1880s about war between Germany and France. And they're also a literary people and a musical people. So these stories were set to song, and they were in books, and they were amazing. And I don't know, maybe you don't want to just trade or build factories. By this time, the Industrial Revolution had been going on long enough that people had some experience with factories. They were probably over the steam engine. It was pretty cool about 40 years ago, but now it's like, yeah, okay, it's just the world now. So people get bored or disillusioned, and they want to do something. And the problem was that too many of them wanted to do something. And if you have a lot of young men excited about something, well, somebody might make use of that. We can send them somewhere. That's part of it. That's definitely part of the motivation for things like war, right? I don't think a historian would tell me I'm wrong about that. So, who were the men who wanted war to happen, and why did they want it? Why did it seem like a good idea? What was going on in the world around them? Okay, I'm kind of focused on Germany right now. You've got Tsarist Russia, which is politically a powder keg. The Tsar is sending thousands of their citizens off to Siberia to die. You've got communism in the air. They say we need a new idea for a new age. The old ideas don't work anymore. Does that sound familiar? We have this today. All right. Dissatisfaction. Many thousands of dissatisfied people. And they're dissatisfied for good reasons. You may have heard your parents complaining for 20 years about wages, and they never get ahead. And there's no prospect for you either. This creates political foment, creates, maybe movements, maybe books, maybe it erupts into culture, into the stories that people read. And then one or two of those stories is a flashpoint around which a whole movement coalesces. What are these movements, and who are the people involved in them? My God. It's everywhere you look. It's a kaleidoscope of intersecting will and disappointment and selfishness and greed, but also virtue and sacrifice, maybe a little bit of heroism. Never forget that it's a human story. Um, and it's and it informs you. Here you are in this world. You have these choices in front of you, and they're important. You're gonna die. You're gonna be gone. Um, what are you building? Will it be any good, or will you yourself be disappointed in what you didn't build or what you did build? It matters. You have choices that matter in front of you all the time. And the scariest thing is that those moments might pass you by and you don't recognize them for the important moments that they are. So then you live your life by default. You just kind of float down the stream. You didn't choose which of two paths in the stream. You might not like that later. Those are missed opportunities. I don't know. Should you float, or should you grab the wheel? Well, now this is philosophy. But philosophy and history, they go together. They're the same. How do you philosophize unless there's experience and memory from which to build the fire of philosophy? The logs in the fire of philosophy, the big logs, are events in your own life or in the lives of others or in the lives of your civilization. One day, when we're an interplanetary species, the log will be whether to leave the Earth or not. That will be something that people will think about, and they'll chew it over, and they'll try to decide what to do now, based on what happened before. This is grist for the mill of your life. It's gold. It's valuable. It's valuable, and because of the way you're taught, you're convinced to ignore it all. What a disaster that is. Okay, just a few thoughts.